giggling his head off, and then he went on singing to me. In this struggle, my left leg and knee sustained injuries for which I had to obtain medical care for several months afterwards. I tried to remain in seemingly outer good humor throughout this, with still trying to convey to him some firmness of not wanting to engage in sexual activity with him, although the thought and total fear in my mind was that I was on the brink of being forcibly raped. I had to use comments like, "It's too bad we didn't meet in college when we were younger. That would have been more fun." To keep body language said no as well. I even said to him at one point, "Al, no means no," to which he just laughed and groped me some more. After a while, he sat up on the bed when I got my hand free from his, and I got off the bed first and was going to the other room to begin to finish packing up my stuff and go home. I must have been like trying to gather it. Before I could get away from his hand reach, he prevailed upon me to listen to just this one other song about women's feelings and their inner self and trust that he said his wife introduced him to, which is about a woman choosing to let a man into her deeper self or some such things. That's just unbelievable. He's trying every angle here. It's just like it's crap. I said I really had to go, but he loudly demanded that I sit on the bed again. That forceful thing. Grasped me by the arm. I did not struggle, afraid of eliciting more forcefulness from him. And I listened to the song, so I'm sitting again gingerly on the bed, my arm grabbed. And then listening and more of his singing while he ran his hand on my leg once or twice towards and in my crotch, or I slapped and moved away from there. He giggled each time like it was a game, getting more enthused while I got more scared. All the while he was singing the song to me. While it played on the iPod, I kept saying, "I had to go, it's late, my mama raised me to be a good girl, I can't do this, I gotta go," and so on, trying to get him to relent, without provoking a confrontation with him who was so much larger and stronger than me. This was an apparent last-ditch effort to keep me in the bedroom so that he could try again. I also did not want him to realize how frightened I was, as I thought if he perceived my fear and hence my vulnerability, he might just use total force and overcome me quickly. I wanted him to perceive me as having some wherewithal and savvy and fight in me, a force to be reckoned with, while at the same time not appear confrontational so as not to raise his ire again, which also might make him move more forcibly on me. He pleaded, grabbed me, engulfed me in embrace, tongue-kissed me, massaged me, groped my breasts, and painfully squeezed my nipples through my clothing, pressed his pelvis against mine, rubbed my buttocks with his hands and fingers, and rubbed himself against my crotch, saying, "You know you want to do it," as I kept pulling and struggling and pulling away from him. This is when I'm up and trying to leave. I finally got out the door after being forcibly being pulled back in the room in the doorway by him a couple times and trying to leave, to be groped and fondled and have tongue kisses forced on me. This is what he's doing, and that's when he's saying, "You know you want to do it," and I was just thinking, oh my God. When I finally got away, I hurried down the hall to the elevator and went downstairs via the elevator, where I felt really shaky and faint, and I arrived quite shaken at the main lobby, where I could hardly think or write, yet I needed to scribble out a receipt for the hotel to get cash before I left. They had wanted a receipt, they usually didn't, and I was just, you know, it was after 1:30 a.m. There is a payment discrepancy issue. I've yet to be paid in full for my work, for my time, to add salt to the wound. I was too shaken to do the correct billing at the time. I told the staff I'd email a better copy in the morning. It was all I could do to keep from running out of the lobby in terror. I did not tell the hotel staff, as I could not imagine any support from them. Massage therapists have been shown to be expendable in a hotel who coddles its guests with the extreme form of "the customer is always right." As I took off my clothing to go to the shower, I noticed some stains on the front of my black slacks. These were newer black slacks. It might have been the second time I wore them, so I thought, they could dressy. Possibly I could wear them on a date, so I was trying to be like I'm messed up. And I I took them off and I said, what's those stains on the front of those? And I wondered if it was soap or bodily fluids from Gore pushing up against me repeatedly, because they're about here, holding me down, etc., with nothing on but his hotel-issued terry robe with a belt to hold it closed. I carefully hung them up and decided to be sure not to launder them until I knew more what to do with what had happened. Just my intuition. I washed the sheets I'd used with him during that session the next day. I remember lawyers yelling at me about that. I'm like, anybody could be getting bodily fluids on there. I don't prove a damn thing, you know. People lay naked on the table. I did not immediately call the police, as I deeply feared being made into a public spectacle and my work reputation being destroyed. I was not sure what to tell them and was concerned my story would not be believed since there was no DNA evidence from a completed act of rape. I did not even know what to call what had happened to me. I did not know if the police would even want to take a report on this. I was afraid of being believed. I was terribly confused and felt sickened and shocked. I was in very deep shock and felt frozen and shaken. When I saw online where I could read and say, oh, it's called sexual assault. This is what happened to me. Whoa, this is a crime. You know, I had to look on the frickin' internet. But that's part of the shock. Because I think if I had a client come in, I would have been like driving them to the police. It's just this craziness. Is this normal? It is. What's not in here also is I called my friend and I told her what happened, and she went into the, couldn't you have gotten out of the room? She just went into this whole thing of you could have gotten out of the room. It's because you had bad boyfriends that passed everything, and I got angry. I got furious. It about just split our friendship. People have gone through horrible things that I haven't gone through, but the mind trip with this thing it's just like, instead of swallowing a pill, it's trying to swallow one the size of the globe. And having to carry the mantle for, if the world falls apart according to people's belief systems, it's all on me. And I'm like, that's so crazy making. Does this make sense what I'm saying? It's just, but I consulted with an attorney as this was so overwhelming, and I felt the need to understand my rights and choices in a private setting. Since all I have ever been interested in with this situation is stopping this from happening to others, I decided I was not interested in making any money from this case. I did not want to be labeled a gold digger like women in this situation are often labeled. I don't care about judgments for money and some army of lawyers fighting another army of lawyers. It would not bring back my pre-assault sense of peace and safety. I don't want to be bought off into silence. I only want justice. And having this ugly thing come out of the shadows and into the light where it cannot continue anymore. And for this man to be stopped from what he has been doing, which should have been done a long time ago. I know that I'm not the first woman to be assaulted by him. My guts told me that when I was struggling in the room with him, and I stand by it today. I hope the others will feel brave enough to come forward in spite of his public stature and army of lawyers.
Plutonium production at Hanford. It took until the year 2004 when we ran the statewide ballot initiative trying to stop Hanford from being a national radioactive waste dump before the federal government finally ended dumping radioactive waste in unlined ditches. I know this sounds incredible to people, but there are 40 miles of unlined trenches at Hanford, if you stretch them end to end, into which our federal government, your government, was dumping radioactive waste from nuclear weapons production and its own reactors until the year 2004 when we put those pictures on air and in our campaign literature for Initiative 297. It's been against the law for decades for a municipal government to dump in municipal garbage in unlined landfills, but our federal government thinks it's okay for radioactive waste, even though it seeps right out of those trenches and starts moving to the Columbia River.
That's related to an important meeting that's coming up on tomorrow, Monday, at
at Seattle Center's Northwest Rooms at 7 p.m. is the hearing on the Energy Department's plan to use Hanford as a national radioactive waste dump. They're talking about bringing in and burying 3 million cubic feet of radioactive waste, mostly from nuclear weapons production. And their own analysis in the impact statement, which they were forced to redo, and that's the topic of the hearing, their own analysis shows that these landfills will leak, they will contaminate the Columbia River. The contamination levels projected just from the waste they want to bring in will increase the contamination in the groundwater flowing to the river to 100 times our state's cancer risk cleanup standard. The Energy Department also has a plan not to clean up the high-level nuclear waste tank leaks at Hanford, and we're talking about some of the most deadly waste ever created on the planet that's sitting in tanks at Hanford, 53 million gallons. Over 1 million gallons of that deadly high-level nuclear waste has leaked from tanks, and it's spreading rapidly through the soil to the groundwater, and it will move to the Columbia River. So instead of cleaning it up, our federal government says we'll just put dirt caps over this vast area of contamination.